Uh, when we last left off, Deku, Chop Chop, and Stealth Elf had managed to bring Gilgrunt back to Skylanders Academy. Deku had also brought Kirishima to Skylands for his first time. And when I say his first time, I mean that Deku's gonna be bringing people to from Class 1A and UA in general to Skylands. Like, he's just gonna be doing. I am confirming it now. The people in Class 1A will be going to Skylands. So, just hold on, okay? It'll come. We haven't even hit the entrance exam yet. But, anyways. Oh god. Oh yeah, right. When the end of the day came, Deku had brought Kirishima back, and they went home. And, if you've seen the mini-sode, you know what happens to Kirishima, but you will not need to have seen the mini-sode to understand what's going on in this first little bit. You will need to have seen part 4, though. So, anyways, when the next day starts up, Deku and Chop Chop, they're training on Dekuba Beach. It's early in the morning. I'm gonna say it's about, 8 o'clock. So, Kirishima and All Might, they've been training for longer, but, it's still technically early in the morning, and All Might and Kirishima, they approach Deku and Chop Chop. And, All Might has a worried look on his face, and, Kirishima, he has a mixed look of worry and disappointment. This disappointment is not directed towards All Might, it is easy to tell, but he still has a disappointed and worried look on his face. So, when they approach Deku and Chop Chop, the pair notice that All Might and Kirishima are worried and ask what's going on. Kirishima then says, well, one of my friends followed me here yesterday. She wanted to know what I was doing here, and I couldn't make anything up, as she took a picture of the four of us. And Deku, he's semi-concerned, and Chop Chop asks, well, is there anything else? And Kirishima says, yeah, she's also wondering if she can train with us now. And Chop Chop says, well, it's going to be up to the three of you whether or not she can come. But, if she is to come, it would be easy to make something up. For example, we can say that Kirishima's quirk evolved, and All Might is teaching him to use his newfound strength. And we can also say, if she gets really nosy, that All Might has a power-stalking quirk, as All for One is literally a power-stalking quirk that can be passed on from user to user. At least that's what we know of it so far. Kirishima, he looks semi-relieved, and so does All Might, but All Might looks a little bit more relieved than Kirishima. And then Deku asks Chop Chop, why do the rest of us have to decide whether or not she can come? And Chop Chop says, well, I'm not really from here, as you already know, so I most likely will be a bad judge of character for people of this world. And Deku, he understands, the rest of them aren't gonna force him to do anything, as not only do they see Chop Chop as a semi-mentor, they see him as a friend as well. And, Kirishima, he looks to All Might and Deku and he says, I want your guys' opinions before I make any decisions. And All Might looks to Kirishima and he says, well, young Kirishima, if you really trust your friend, then I will be fine with having her here. Besides, it will give you time to practice fighting against a different kind of enemy. Who knows, maybe you'll even be able to unlock a higher percentage of All for One than you already have. Sorry, not All for One, One for All. Ugh. Why do people keep saying that? Everyone keeps saying that. Even me. Sorry about that. I did need to pause recording. So I needed to take some time to remember what I was saying. Very sad. Anyways, yeah. So, Kirishima, he then looks over to Deku, and he says, well, what's your opinion? And Deku says, well, what do you think of her? She's your friend, and it won't affect my training. So, Kirishima says, well, she's really nice. She's probably a better hero than I am, and she's outgoing. But it's hard for her to keep secrets sometimes, and I don't want to overwhelm her with everything. Deku, he looks at Kirishima, and he says, well, if everything that you've said is true, then I'm okay with having her here. It's obvious that you have a lot of faith in her, and you being worried for her instead of your secret means that you know that she'll be able to pull it off, but have doubts as to how long. And you'll be able to help her work on that. So I see no problem with it. Kirishima thanks Deku, and he says, alright then. When would be a good time for her to start? And Deku, he says, well, tomorrow would probably be the best time, as we just came to the decision, and telling her to come over out of nowhere is a little bit preemptive. We haven't even had time to rehearse, I guess. We're trying to keep the secret of All for One from her, but even then, we might end up telling her if we find that she's trustworthy. Kirishima, he understands, and he says, alright, I'm gonna go text her. Wish me luck. She's probably gonna be super excited and not stop texting me. Deku and All Might and Chop Chop, they chuckle a little bit and say, well, you're gonna have to leave her hanging. She's gonna be grumpy at you and talk to you in person, and you basically will not be able to speak throughout the entire conversation. Kirishima, he's a little bit scared now, but he still runs over to the phone and texts her, and he walks back and he says, he walks back in 15 seconds and says, Chop Chop, you are a prophet. Jokingly, he says that, and Chop Chop says, I've had that happen to me 3 times before. I know what I'm doing. And Kirishima, he chuckles a little bit, and he says, okay then, well, I guess we should get back to training. And they do that, they get back to training. Training goes as usual. When it's time for Deku and Kirishima to spar, Deku wins the match. And, yeah, so, eventually time comes for Deku to head to Skylands. He has to go earlier than normal for some reason. He's been called there, but he still needs to do his classes. So, he goes to Skylands with Chop Chop, Stealth Elf, Trap Shadow, and Gil Grunt. They're waiting for him. And Stealth Elf says, we heard the news. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be having classes early today. Chop Chop nods and brings them to the classroom. And during the classroom, Stealth Elf, let's just say she's a little bit more awkward than usual, you know. And Deku, he confronts her about that, and she gets super flustered. Deku is oblivious to the fact that she's, like, flustered. He just thinks that it's awkward. And, she leaves. Like, she's semi-sprinting when she leaves. And Deku, he's left standing there confused. So, Chop Chop walks up to him and says, we've learned of a camp of former Skylands. It's only 3 portal jumps away. And even then, me and Gilgrunt know how to use the superchargers that we have on hand. Deku says, alright, but before I go check this out, I want to do something. And Chop Chop, he is a little confused and a little interested at the same time. And Deku tells him, go get Trap Shadow and meet me out in the main courtyard. Chop Chop, he thinks he knows what's going on. Like, he's pretty sure, and when I say pretty sure, I mean, like, 92% sure of what's going on. So, when Trap Shadow and Chop Chop meet Deku in the courtyard, Deku says, so, Trap Shadow, you've been here for a while, and you've shown me through our countless training sessions, because for some reason I need to train here, even though I've basically mastered everything. But you've shown that you can still be creative and overall an effective Skylander, even without the knowledge of traps you once had. Trap Shadow, he's looking at Deku, he's confused, and, just overall semi-excited. And then Deku asks Trap Shadow, do you want to be a Skylander again? And Trap Shadow, he slightly clenches his fist. And he says, I don't think I deserve it. I'm not the same person I used to be. I was braver. I could do things that most other people couldn't, but I was still... I never really thought I deserved it in the first place. I gladly accepted my role, but never thought anything of it. And now that it's gone, I have had time to reflect. And Deku, he looks at Trap Shadow and says, you may not think that you deserve to be a Skylander, but you've shown that you're just a hero. And that's what Skylanders are here. They help people. They protect people. They know what they need to do to be there. You don't need to be on the front lines all the time. And it's okay to be scared and self-conscious sometimes, but don't let what happens to you, it's what brings you down, or anything negative that happened to you. Control who you are, because outside of that, you are a great hero. And you deserve to be a Skylander, whether you think of it, believe it or not. You have been one ever since you first joined. You never really lost that heroic spark. And Trap Shadow, he looks at Deku. There's a small tear in his eye, and he says, thank you. I really needed that. And Deku says, so, do you want me to put you into the book today, or wait for another time? Trap Shadow says, well, if what you have said is true, then it'll take a little getting used to, but I'd rather be in there today than forget to do it tomorrow. And Deku, he takes out the Book of Skylanders and a pencil, and he draws Trap Shadow into the Book of Skylanders. And Deku says, well, Stealth has already gone on a mission with me and Chop Chop, but since you're a Skylander now, why don't you accompany me? We found a camp of former Skylanders 3 hops away. And besides, Chop Chop needs a break. Trap Shadow, he chuckles at this and jokingly says, it's the only reason you put me in the book to give Chop Chop a break. And Deku, he's joking, and he laughs a little bit and says, no. And they start walking to the portal, and Deku says, well, Chop Chop, do you want to come or not? And Chop Chop says, well, since I have the option to have a break, I might as well take it. So, Deku and Trap Shadow, they go to the portal, and within 3 teleporter hops, they arrive on an island. Half of it has been covered in volcanic eruption. There's a volcano on one side of the island that erupted recently. They can clearly see that. The other side is a thick and dense jungle. And they aren't sure how the jungle hasn't set on fire. The Shadow, he's looking through the bush of the jungle half, because the teleporter, still is on one side of the island, but it's in between the lava side and the jungle side. So Trap Shadow, he's looking through the jungle side, and he says to Deku, look, over here, there's a path. It probably leads to that camp that you were talking about. And Deku says, I wish we could get more information on it, but this island is as much information as we've gotten. And Trap Shadow says, alright, we should probably take this path to the camp. I'll be in front. We don't want you getting attacked by the other Skylanders. And Deku, he chuckles a little bit, and Trap Shadow, he chuckles a little bit too, and they start going down the path. And as they're going down the path, they see a lot of traps. Like, you know the classic trap where you stand on a net and it ties you up? Like, there's pitfalls, there's just a bunch of traps that you could easily set up in a jungle setting, and it looks like that they've all been activated. But they continue down the path, and they eventually reach the camp. And, you see Trigger Happy on the walls of the camp, because this camp is less of a camp and more of a half put together base with the resources that they've had. And Trigger Happy sees Trap Shadow, but he doesn't see Deku. And Trigger Happy, he's like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long. And he calls out something that Deku and Trap Shadow, they couldn't really hear. And he grabs his golden pistols and hops off of the wall and runs over to Trap Shadow and Deku. And when Trigger Happy reaches them, Trigger Happy, he pulls out his guns and, he's like, there's someone behind you. And he shoots them, and Trap Shadow pulls Deku out of the way, and he says, wait. This is the new Portal Master. And Trigger Happy, he looks confused and asks, what do you mean, new Portal Master? And oh my god, why am I so bad at this right now? Trap Shadow says, Chop Chop went looking for the Portal Master out after the book of Skylanders started to decay. Everyone in the book was erased. Well, at least erased from the book. And Chop Chop managed to find a new Portal Master. Chop Chop says that he might be more powerful more powerful than Eon. Why am I stuttering? Trigger Happy says, probably the stutter spores. They can do that to people. Come on, let's get to the camp. If what you're saying is true, then I guess I trust you. You've never been the type to lie unless you're pulling a prank on Gilgrunt. And Deku, he asks, what are these, stutter spores? Trigger Happy says, well, these spores make it hard for people to speak, usually ending in people stuttering a lot. If inhaled directly from the mushroom, they have dangerous consequences, to say the least. And they get to the camp. Trigger Happy lets them in and says, the other Skylanders should be back soon. You two can stay in that tent over there. And they see that this camp is actually pretty large. Like, it looks larger on the inside than it is on the outside, but it is still pretty large. And when they enter the tent, they see a few chairs, fire in the center, some other basic appliances like a table and a microwave, surprisingly. And Deku says, well, might as well wait. So, what do you want to do in the meantime? And, that's where I'm gonna leave off part 5. Mwahaha. I am evil and leave you on a cliffhanger. But, if you really want to know, I have been paying attention to the suggestions. And I wanted to introduce a lot of Skylanders, but I don't want to introduce them one Skylander per part. And I do feel like Skylanders with similar disadvantages or flaws would group up and help each other cope with them before they return to the Academy, if they return to the Academy at all. And, yeah. I'm not going to be introducing any giants until after Deku does the entrance exam, or at the very least the next part, because the giants, they were only OP in their game, and I want to make it so that they're actually OP. So, yeah, the giants are coming. I don't know about, the Imaginator senseis. Like, sure, I'm gonna have some of the villain senseis. But I don't really think I'm gonna be talking about many of the other actual senseis. So, yeah, that's it for this part, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.